Hello everyone, and welcome back to our weekly 6-scale recap series, where we'll be looking at teases, pre-order announcements, releases for the week, anything newsworthy in the 1/6 scale world that I felt might not merit its own video. So this week had a surprising Hot Toys release that we talked about earlier in that Indiana Jones figure, as well as another last-minute Hot Toys announcement today, and some other interesting figures and teases and releases that are pretty unique that are worth touching on. But before starting and getting into the crux of things, I have to go into my mandatory disclaimer. So I'm not affiliated with any of these companies, I'm not affiliated with any resellers either, and I'm not using this as a sales post, which is why I really don't post links for purchasing these. Purpose of the video is just for me to discuss interesting news posted on social media that impacts 6-scale figure collecting, and in particular, figures that I find interesting or products I'm tempted to get for my own setup. And I do think once pictures go public for announcement, it's pretty much up for discussion. So with that out of the way, let's jump right into things and start with teases. And perfectly timed with the drop of the second trailer for Dune Part 2, Aug Toys has teased the fourth figure from their ongoing Dune line, and it is Duke Leto Atreides as portrayed by Oscar Isaac. Now, Aug Toys also dropped a pre-order announcement, which we'll touch on in a little bit. But what else can I say other than I think this looks pretty good. Likeness seems to be there, and the detail on the combat armor looks to be well done. I will be curious to see the full reveal pics, but I feel like this is a great indication that Aug Toys is going to push forward with this line. And I do believe they've also noted plans to release a Duncan Idaho Jason Momoa figure. So they're definitely going deep into the story, I think. Fingers crossed with Dune Part 2 coming out, Aug Toys decides to continue on with the license. And we'll talk Dune a little bit more as well. Next up from X06 is another tease, this time for data from the next generation. And X06 is also showing him with a terminal and chair from the show. Now, I'm sure the figure's coming, but question is X06 going to do this terminal setup? They already did the first contact captain's chair and have teased the Borg regeneration alcove, so I wouldn't put it past them to continue on with this diorama-like set. And you all know I'm a sucker for dioramas, so this would be tempting for me. Overall, I think it has potential, and I think it touches on one of the more popular shows in the Star Trek canon. My only concern, if you can even call it that, with X06 is we're seeing a lot of teases from them, and I'm just worried we're going to get hit with an onslaught of pre-orders that are going to be, at least for me, difficult to pass on. Besides Next Generation, they're teasing Picard Season 3, which kind of goes hand in hand with TNG. They're also teasing the DS9 line and more, so my wallet is not going to be happy with me. I did miss the first contact data, so I'm glad to have a chance to pick him up. And that data was amazing, so I don't doubt we'll be getting something really good here. So now, moving on to figure announcements, and we're going to start with another Hot Toys announcement. And they're actually releasing Supergirl from the Flash movie. I'll be honest, with the poor box office showing, I figured Hot Toys might hit on the brakes a little bit with this line. Just the interest for the movie didn't seem to be there, but surprisingly, it looks like they at least have one more release in them, and I'm excited for this one. First of all, I think the Supergirl suit looks great. I think the sculpt work was also nicely done here, and with the rolling eye system, there are some shots that look amazingly lifelike, and there's a ton of detail on the sculpt and on the figure's hair, so I think Hot Toys did a great job. But I will say that comes with a little bit of an asterisk on it. There are some shots where I do think the likeness gets lost a little bit, and part of that does have to do with the rolling eyes again. There are just some things that don't look as good. So I overall like everything, but I think getting the eyes in the right position is going to be key to having the figure look as good as it can. Moving on, you have the detail on the suit, which just has that great textured fabric along with the printed plastic looking elements running along her legs and the gauntlets on her arms. But I do like the fact that the suit transitions to full red at her shoulders and neck. I think visually it just sets her apart. Now, just like Superman, she doesn't come with much, just her wired cape, a display stand with a flight pole, and a bunch of hands. But I do think this is a beautiful looking figure, and for me, this is going to be a case like Black Adam, where I'm thinking more about what my display could look like rather than just the movie. And thinking more about how Supergirl, for example, would look great standing next to my Cavill Supes and the Gal Gadot Wonder Woman. And it's also why I am trying to get that Black Adam figure. I think forgetting the movie, just having him standing next to Superman, he's going to look pretty great. It's just my own display for DC, taking these real-life characters and basically saying forget the movies. And like I said, I do think the color on the suit is going to look nice next to Superman, and it won't feel like just a recreation of his suit. It's pretty unique, and that'll set them apart. For Flash, I'm not picking up everything. I'm definitely picking up the older Keaton, and then I am going to be getting the Supergirl. I'm still debating on the Flash. Not sure about that for now, but for now I think these are the two definite figures I'm looking at, and they're good enough for me to just feel like I'm adding characters that I liked and that I want in my DC collection. So I'm excited again to get her, and I'm glad Hot Toys at least decided to move forward with this release. Now, there are some shots showing Zod, but again, with the movie's performance, is Hot Toys actually going to do a reissue or a 2.0 Zod? I'm not sure. While the movie has tanked, I think it ultimately depends on whether or not people are choosing to get the figures. I could see a world where collectors essentially ignored the movie and just get the figures because they represent characters that they really love or have a connection to, but I'm curious to see if Hot Toys decides to move forward with more figures from the line, or if this is essentially going to be it. Moving on, we have to talk a little bit more Dune, because Aug Toys hit us with a second version of Paul Atreides, this time in his Fremen still suit. And the figure, at least for me, is really impressive. Or at least the promo shots are very impressive, particularly looking at the sculpt. First of all, I think it does a great job of capturing the actor's likeness, and I do think it's an improvement over that original version that came out with the ceremonial military suit. Add to that the detail with the sculpted hair, which just looks phenomenal. Hopefully this promo and the detail work and likeness they're showing here translate to the final production figure itself, because I think without a doubt, of the 3 pre-order figures that Aug Toys has put out, this is clearly the best one to date. Now, doesn't come with many accessories other than some hands and a military style blade, as well as the Fremen Chris knife, which really has some great detail work along the handle and the blade itself. Besides that, you get a backpack and a wired cape that does allow for some nice alternate poses, and you also get a face mask. So I think it's a great looking figure overall, and the detail work on the still suit itself and the cape just looks really top notch. I do have to give credit to Aug Toys, because I think they basically picked the 2 best looks for Paul Atreides from the movie, with that first figure in the dress uniform and this version with a very intricately done suit that just seems to be tailored extremely well. So for me, first of all, I love the books. Dune is an amazing read, really creating this world. And if you read the sequel, Children of Dune, that's another amazing book. I will say, I never watched, from a movie perspective, I never watched that older version that came out during the 80s, but the Sci-Fi Channel did do a miniseries Dune event and a Children of Dune adaptation, actually starring James McAvoy, that I think both of those were actually pretty good. But I personally think this Denis Villeneuve version is the masterpiece, and he's created something that's really worthy of carrying that Dune name. And from the look of the sequel trailer, I think he's going to be able to deliver a great second part of the story, and I'm looking forward to seeing the books get adapted by a director who clearly loves the material. As for the figures, Aug Toys is a new player in the market, and they are going all in on this line, as you can see from the Duke Leto preview. This announcement, the Gurney, which is the James Brolin character, that's also in pre-order, and they seem to be promising more to come, and I'm taking a chance. I have seen some reviews of the first version of Paul Atreides, and mine has shipped, so I'll be doing my own review. I do have Gurney on order, and I did pre-order this version of Paul as well, so I am committing to the line. Although I will say I did hesitate a little bit because Aug is an unknown, and second of all, InArt has noted that they also have the license for figures and will be producing their own version of Paul. For me though, I don't know if they'll intend to go too deep in the line, or if that's going to be a one-off figure, and unfortunately InArt is still moving slowly, and their figures are expensive. So at first I was concerned that Aug Toys was going to maybe pull back a little bit with the competition, but looking at InArt, I don't know that InArt is really much of a threat to them right now. And if Aug Toys can deliver decent figures, I think they're going to be doing really well, and I'm all in for the line. So I'm really excited to get this announcement, and hopefully that first figure will live up to my expectations. Next announcement is a figure I'm not getting. I'll tell you that off the bat, but I had to talk about it because it's one of these insane releases that I don't think anyone could have foreseen. And it's the Premier Toys Guitar Warrior from Mad Max Fury Road. So first, Premier Toys, they've done a few figures and had a few releases, and I own their Lizard from The Amazing Spider-Man, and you can argue also from Spider-Man No Way Home. And I was actually pretty impressed with what they did there. And this release, especially the deluxe, really kind of leaves you speechless. Now look, this is very much a secondary character, It's not Mad Max. It's not Furiosa. It's not Immortan Joe. I mean, I think he's in a handful of scenes of that. I haven't watched Fury Road since it came out in theaters. Great movie, by the way. But anyway, this was a memorable character, even based on the brief screen time he had. And it just seemed like a strange addition to a car chase, having this guy blasting away with a flame shooting guitar and these massive speakers behind him, but somehow it fit into that crazy post-apocalyptic Mad Max world. So figure, first of all, looks great with the red suit, the sneakers, the mask, and even the pale skin tone. I think overall it looks good and like a great recreation of the on-screen character. But here's what I wanted to really discuss. Figure comes in two versions: the standard, which is relatively affordable for 6 scale collecting, and the deluxe. And it's this deluxe version that just, wow. I mean, the wow factor is insane. It comes with an additional unmasked sculpt that looks great, and also comes with flame effects for the guitar, which again just help to add to that dynamic feel of the character. But the highlight here for me is that you are getting the entire speaker system that's being transported with him during the chase, and that setup is massive. And I'll be honest, I don't think I've ever seen a diorama piece like this in 6 scale form. And granted, the figure gets much more expensive. I think I've seen him be about $300 more expensive with the bonuses, but that diorama speaker set is just massive. It completely overwhelms the figure from a scale point of view, but the detail work on the speakers also looks pretty incredible. Now, as collectors, we always talk about space constraint. This one would definitely be a space hog in your display, but I have to imagine it would also be a centerpiece that would capture people's attention. And if you are a Mad Max fan and have those other figures, this could be a great backdrop to displaying all of them. But again, I think I'm just astonished at the scale of this and the fact that someone actually thought to make it. These are the kinds of pieces that whether you get the figure or not, really do make being a 6 scale collector fun, because who in a million years would think, yes, someone is going to make this background character, and not only that, but they're going to put together one of the most amazing diorama pieces I've seen in 6 scale. For me, it'll be a pass. Doesn't detract from how much I like it, but I just don't have the space for it. And while I really did like Fury Road, it's not a license I feel like I need figures from. But if you are a Mad Max fan, this could be for you, and I'm looking forward to seeing some unboxings of this when it comes out. Now, moving on to releases, and this week we actually got 3 from Hot Toys. So let's start with the first, which is Marty McFly in his cowboy Clint Eastwood clothing set from Back to the Future Part 3. I'll start by saying I didn't order these, not because I didn't want them, but look, I do buy a lot of figures, but I also still have to budget things. I would love to get everything in an ideal world out there that I'm even remotely interested in, but it's just not feasible. And with Back to the Future 3, while I like the movie and it's essential to the completion of that Back to the Future trilogy, it's not as near and dear to my heart as the original and Part 2 were. So I had to make some decisions, and these ended up not making it to the pre-order purchase list. Having said that, I do think the package overall turned out great. I think the clothing set continues that great Hot Toys tailoring work, and look, it fits great on the figure. I love the poncho, especially covering the cast iron door that he uses as kind of a shield. And I think overall that's good. But I will say there's just something about the sculpt that bothers me a little bit. I think it's a good one, but maybe it's just that he has a slightly aloof expression almost. It's a solid figure, and if money were no object, I'd pick him up, but I do think the sculpt has some very minor issues. But overall, I think a nice release. Second figure that is being released is Doc Brown, also from Back to the Future Part 3, and I do think of the 2 figures, he turned out the best. And I also think he's an improvement over the one Hot Toys released from the first movie with the radiation suit, where they essentially just reused the sculpt from their older Part 2 figure. There's so much to like here. The sculpt, I think, looks great, and the accessories, especially that modified rifle, just showcase how great a job Hot Toys can do. Add to that the great looking clothing and detail work, and this is a figure that just works well. Now, I think he's already waitlisted on Sideshow, so if you want him, I wouldn't wait too long, because I feel like he's going to disappear pretty quickly. Now, Hot Toys did surprise us with one last release, and it is Thena from Marvel's The Eternals. Now look, I know the movie was divisive. Personally, I liked it a lot, and I thought Thena was a great character, and I liked her storyline. And yeah, I did pre-order the figure. So let's start with the positives. I think the accessories look great, and I think the detail work on her suit is really impressive. And I think overall the figure looks fantastic. But then we have to talk about the sculpt. Recently, Hot Toys has been killing it with their sculpts, where they're delivering final products that look very much like the prototypes. I definitely feel when I look at Thena that there's something a little bit off, and it doesn't quite look like Angelina Jolie, which is a shame because I thought the prototype was right there with the likeness. So having this drop in quality or apparent drop, just, it's a little disappointing. Now I'm still getting her, no cancellation on my end for this one, so I'll be curious to get her in hand and see if this might just be a function of lighting. But again, it was a little jarring to see the figure, the picture, since I think the prototype was almost perfect. And look, 3 releases in 1 week, Hot Toys is just ramping up production time. Although with the sculpt change for Thena, the question is that a good thing? Or did Hot Toys just want to push this figure out to not have to deal with it anymore because maybe it's not as popular? I'm not sure what they were thinking there, but regardless, we'll see what happens once I receive the figure, and hopefully my concerns were unfounded. Anyway, that was a quick look at this week's 6 scale news that grabbed my attention. Let me know what you think on any of these, and as always, thanks for watching, and if you are enjoying the content, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing, and we'll touch base on the next video.